Breaking news. Breaking news. Tina Turner, electrifying entertainer and the queen of rock and roll, dies at 83. And this is courtesy to Hollywood Reporter. So the news just broke an hour ago that Tina Turner, who's famous for the song What's Love Got to Do With It, that inspired her biopic of the same name, has passed away today at age 83. So it reads, Tina Turner, it reads, after surviving years of domestic abuse, she had a #1 song with What's Love Got to Do With It, starred in Beyond Thunderdome, and inspired a film and Broadway musical. Tina Turner, the trailblazing rock star who set world records for tickets, and whose dramatic triumph over domestic abuse and the music industry itself made her a feminist icon, has died. She was 83. Turner died Wednesday after a long illness in her home in Kusnacht, near Zurich, Switzerland, her reps announced. With her, the world loses a music legend and a role model, they said. An electrifying live entertainer who sold 200 million albums and won 8 Grammy Awards, Turner rose to fame in the 1960s as the centerpiece of the Ike and Tina Turner Revue, a St. Louis blues band turned high-wire rock act. During more than 60 years in the spotlight, she transformed notions about aging, opportunity, and resilience, most notably with her landmark album, Private Dancer, which launched her to solo superstardom finally at age 44. At the movies, Turner had iconic roles as the acid queen in The Who's rock opera Tommy, and as the ruthless anti-entity in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. On television, she was a fixture on variety shows, on MTV, and in commercials, most notably as the face and legs of a $20 million campaign for Hanes Hosiery, which hired her at 56 to energize the brand. I remember that, and it did energize the brand also. But it was her 1986 memoir, I, Tina, in which she revealed her ex-husband Ike Turner's 16-year reign of terror, her escape and rise from economic ruin that sealed her most enduring role as an averted activist. Do you realize you're a feminist hero? Larry King asked her in 1997. I'm beginning to, she said. A redemption tale told in chilling detail. Her book brought critical light to a mostly hidden crisis, inspiring a feature film, the Angela Bassett starring What's Love Got to Do With It, and the acclaimed 2018-19 Broadway and West End production, Tina, the Tina Turner musical, with her fringe miniskirts, taut frame, flying hair, and swagger, all shocking early on, and a peerless rock and roll catalog. Turner honed a stage act that came to fill stadiums, drawing crowds exceeding those brought in by the likes of the Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, and Queen. During 1988's Break Every Rule tour, the two-time Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, she was voted in as a solo artist in May 2021, shattered box office records in 13 countries and attracted 180,000 fans to Maracanã Stadium to see her perform in Brazil. I had that strange voice that most girl singers didn't have. Turner told CBS's Gayle King about her affinity for rock music. In the beginning, I thought it was kind of ugly because I didn't sound like Diana Ross. But then afterwards, I thought, yeah, it sounds like the guys. Renowned for seemingly limitless stamina, Turner claimed that staying active, eating well, and never smoking, never drinking, and never doing drugs. Through her final concerts before retirement at age 69, she was still tearing through the same choreography she had invented in the 60s, as well as continuing with a nightly heart-stopping stunt, during which she sails over the arena floor, unharnessed in a cherry picker, then danced in stilettos on the crane's slim hydraulic arms. Over the decades, she traversed Grammy categories, using a 4-octave range to move seamlessly from rock and R&B to rock and pop, winning trophies in all three genres. She created an inescapable batch of 80s and 90s hits. Among them, Simply the Best, What's Love Got to Do With It, Better Be Good to Me, and I Don't Want to Fight. But she was equally known for remaking songs that were already perfect. Al Green's Let's Stay Together, The Beatles' Help, and John Fogerty's Proud Mary, which became her career-long anthem. She says she was relieved when she heard the first playback of her recording of Green's classic. It was just my version, she told BET, but staying right with his same sound and not destroying that. Years later, Green sang the song back to her during her Kennedy Center's Honors Tribute in 2005. Meant to be a standalone single overseas, Turner's Let's Stay Together, following her absence of more than 10 years from pop radio, seemed to come out of nowhere in 1983. When the song climbed to the charts, first in the UK and then in the US, stunned record execs scrambled to create an album to go with it. Recorded in England in just 2 weeks, Private Dancer, with its sultry title track, written by Dire Straits frontman Mark Knopfler, was released in May 1984. By the time Turner arrived stateside for a summer tour opening for Lionel Richie, What's Love Got to Do With It had caught fire on the way to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Still, she stayed on as Richie's opener, playing courteous 25-minute sets, careful to not upstage him. Just a few months later, they would celebrate their multiple Grammy victories together. Tina Turner was born Anna Mae Bullock in rural Nutbush, Tennessee, on November 26, 1939. Abandoned by her parents at 11, she was sent to live with a grandmother in nearby Brownsville. After her grandmother's death, she moved to St. Louis to rejoin her mother. With older sister Aline, she would visit Ike Turner's Manhattan Club in East St. Louis, Illinois, and its crosstown rival, the Club Imperial, where Ike's Rhythm Kings band and other pioneering acts, among them Miles Davis and Chuck Berry, were regulars. Joining the Kings in 1958 as Little Ann, Turner sang lead on 1960's A Fool in Love. It was their first hit and one of the first R&B records to cross over to the pop charts. Turner's voice on the recording was something of an accident, as she was temporarily filling in when vocalist Art Lassiter, keep that name in mind because I'm going to go back and I'm going to mention who he is, didn't show up at the studio. When record executives told Ike they preferred the song the way it was, he quickly changed the name of his band to the Ike and Tina Turner Revue and told Anna Mae after the fact that she would be called Tina. He then trademarked the name Tina Turner so he could replace her with a stand-in if she ever left the group. He controlled her whole life, Rhonda Graham, the band's tour manager, said in a 1992 documentary. She couldn't do anything without asking Ike first. After catching the Turners at the Imperial one night, a young Mick Jagger asked them to join as openers for the Stones in 1966. It was the beginning of a long friendship with Jagger and with the UK, where Turner's status as a rock and roll blues giant was revered. Back home with Ike, however, she was a hostage and the target of violence so horrific. She would often taste blood in the back of her throat while on stage. Her injuries often were met with indifference by white doctors during trips to the ER. Isolated and without bank accounts of her own, Turner attempted S in 1968 by swallowing a bottle of sleeping pills backstage before a gig. She was briefly hospitalized and quickly returned to a relentless touring schedule. Her world would broaden only occasionally. In 1966, producer Phil Spector created the pop Sorry about that. I had a phone call. So anyway, what it reads, continue. Let me just go back to where it says afterwards. She was briefly hospitalized and quickly returned to a relentless touring schedule. Her world would broaden only occasionally. In 1966, producer Phil Spector created the pop opus River Deep Mountain High for her on the condition that Ike stay clear of their recording sessions. Spector described his time in the studio with her as working with the perfect instrument. On another rare solo excursion, this time to England for the filming of Tommy in 1974, Turner reconnected with co-star Anne Margaret, whose lucrative Las Vegas shows, sustained without his singles or even a recording contract, had long intrigued her. They had dances in the greatest costumes, and they performed. Turner said in 1992, she didn't have a record, and I thought, I could do that. While traveling to a concert in 1976, Turner endured what would be her final domestic assault. With her husband asleep in their Dallas hotel room, she grabbed her purse and ran, dodging semi-trailers as she fled across the interstate to a Ramadan Inn she spotted in the distance. With her face bloodied and 35 cents and a mobile credit card to her name, she was unsure what to expect, but she approached the manager. He recognized her and gave her a room. It was the start of an 8-year odyssey that included food stamps, stints cleaning homes, and rejection from label executives who dismissed her as too old to start over at age 37. Using production equipment lent to her by Anne Margaret, she created a solo act anyway and forged ahead. She played hotel lounges and TV variety shows, Donnie and Marie, Cher, the Sonny and Cher show, and the Brady Bunch Variety Hour among them. Though she was earning little money and in need of artistic direction, she called it a happy period. After I left Ike, Bob Mackie made me a costume that I had wings. She said in an NBC interview in 2020, I felt like I was flying. I was barely paying the bills, but we were having a wonderful time. I learned I could decide what tempo the song should be. She won the sole use of her name and nothing else in her 1978 divorce. Despite flopping with a couple of solo albums, a rising Australian manager, Roger Davies, took her on in 1980, recognizing her non-parallel performance skills. She had refined over thousands of hours on stage. Jagger and other British superstars, among them Elton John, Rod Stewart, David Bowie, and Eric Clapton, lined up to share the mic with her. She created headline-grabbing shows of her own, notably at American hotspots, the Ritz in New York, and the Venetian Room in San Francisco. If there have to be a sex symbols, Tina Turner is the best kind. Wise, tough, and adult. Music critic John Perales wrote for the Ritz shows in 1984. Though she had asked Hollywood directors to keep her in mind for acting roles, she turned down Steven Spielberg's offer to play Shug Avery in The Color Purple, calling the part too close to home. She would go on instead to star opposite Mel Gibson in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. For much of her career, Turner remained resolute in her desire to avoid situations that reminded her of her past. Even when Disney executives toned down the violence and What's Got to Do with It, on the grounds that the reality was too awful to believe, she refused to see it. She had no comment when Ike died in 2007. Said Bassett in a statement, "How do we say farewell to a woman who owned her pain and trauma and used it as a means to help change the world? Through her courage in telling her story, her commitment to stay the course in her life, no matter the sacrifice, and her determination to carve out a space in rock and roll for herself and for others who look like her, Tina Turner showed others who lived in fear what a beautiful future filled with love, compassion, and freedom should look like." Her final words for me were, "You never mimicked me. Instead, you reached deep into your soul, found your inner Tina, and showed her to the world. I shall hold these words close to my heart for the rest of my days." Turner penned a second memoir, My Love Story, which delved further into her hardships including a 2013 stroke, a cancer battle, kidney failure, and the 2018 of her oldest child, Craig Turner, her son with musician Raymond Hill. The book details her romance with Erwin Bach, the German record executive she met in the airport in 1985. Ignoring conventional timelines, once again, she threw herself in a dream wedding at age 73 after she and Bach had been together for 27 years. Wearing a green and black Armani ball gown, she walked up the aisle after the ceremony to a recording of Frank Sinatra singing My Way. In addition to Bach, survivors include two of Ike's sons, Michael and Ike Jr., whom she adopted. There will be a private funeral ceremony attended by close friends and family. Her only child with Ike, Ronnie, died suddenly in December. Though weakened by health issues, she was an active producer of Tina Turner musical, watching over details and demonstrating her signature dance step to cast members. She said she had no need for a Broadway musical about her life, but was pleased her message was carrying on. For decades, she had received correspondence from people worldwide detailing how her accomplishments had inspired them to take action in their own lives. Joining the Tina cast on stage for an opening night bow at the Fontaine Theater in New York, she said her life story was like poison that turned into medicine. Asked by Oprah Winfrey in 2013 what she thought her legacy would be, Turner replied, "Endurance. My legacy is that I stayed on course from the beginning till the end," she added. "I believed in something inside of me that told me you can make something better. My legacy is a person who strived for something better, and I got it." And I'm going to say that this one, to me, this one hurts. This one is personal, and I'm going to explain to you why. I take it personal, this loss. Tina Turner was born the same year of my parents, 1939. Tina Turner was born literally 1 week before my mother. She was born on Saturday, November 26, 1939. My mother was born a whole week later, and my mother loved Tina Turner. Going back to the Ike and Tina Turner review days, she would see her and go to shows where they was performing at the Apollo Theater. Okay? And my mother loved her. My mother was like, she's a Sag like me. I could just tell it. I could sense it, because she was wild on stage. Because Sagittarius is like a untamed horse, and that's what Tina really represents. She represents an untamed horse. She can be controlled. She had to be free, like with the whole thing. Like, I was broke, but I was free. It was the best time of my life. I wasn't getting my ass beat, And so, she passed away at 83, born in 1939. I'll be 40 soon. And what Tina Turner represents to all of us, she was the first woman I saw who was in her 40s that looked young, and she made it cool to be in your 40s. She will always be iconic for that alone. She became a superstar at the age of 44. That was unheard of. That's like a time where it's like, once you're in your 40s, it's over for you. It's over. But for her, it was the beginning. So I always looked at Tina Turner like, oh my God, 40 can be the bomb. I can make 40 like popping. I can make 30 popping. But, I was like, it's not the end of the light at the end of the road. You can have so much fun, because it's like you've been there and done that. And that's what it was for her. Also, musically, Tina Turner could really sing. And Tina Turner was the queen of rock and roll. A lot of people don't mention that, but she is the queen of rock and roll. Many people don't really mention that title because they don't want to admit that the queen of rock and roll is a black woman. And it's Tina Turner. Another thing that I say was dope about Tina Turner was that even approaching her 70s, she could still move, dance, and perform. She chose to retire at 69. I guess because she was tired. Her feet probably could have gave out by then, but she looked great in her 70s. But by the time we got to the late 2010s, her health was deteriorating. And it took a toll on her. And then losing her children, and she just lost another child back in December. And I didn't know that those were her blood children. I thought that one of them was Ike's children. But all her bio children, they predeceased her. And that could have took a toll on her. That could have did it. But iconically, she is an icon. She had a doll, immortalized of her image from What's Love Got to Do With It, the music video. 12-time Grammy Award winner. I want to say that the person who she fills in for, Art Lassiter, very important. That is the man who fathered Art Lassiter Jr. with Robbie Montgomery, who was the son. That's the grandfather to Andre Montgomery. So I'm not Art Lassiter Jr. Andre Montgomery Sr. is the son to Art Lassiter, the man that was mentioned in the article from the whole Sweetie Pie situation. He's the grandfather to Andre Montgomery Jr. Okay? So that was something interesting. And I didn't even know that. And Art Lassiter was very close to Ike Turner. And she is an icon. And I'm going to be honest with you, I prepared for this because I kind of knew it was coming. But I didn't think it would, you just don't think when. But it's like, you just got to be kind of like logical. Like, she's in her 80s and she didn't have good health. But that kind of shocked me because I really thought Tina Turner could have lived to 100. I really did. Because for years she looked young. Even when in her mid 70s, she was looking young. It was like, Tina looks young. But when her children predeceased her, that's what did it. But to me, she is a person that, in my opinion, is something that women could follow in terms of being youthful. Because I definitely follow that. I mean, how you feel about how she did Ike, that's one thing. But you can't deny her youthfulness. Her youthfulness was iconic. The way she came back, the way she triumphant. Because in her 20s and 30s, she wasn't in the same stratosphere as her peers. She wasn't like Aretha Franklin. She wasn't like on the level of Dionne Warwick. She wasn't on the level of Diana Ross. She wasn't on the level of, who else black? I can't think. Because that was like the big three. And when I'm talking about people who had top in the charts, she wasn't one of them. But then in the 80s, she basically topped all three of them. She became a superstar. But remember something, as she always said this, America did not make me a superstar. It was Europe that made me a star. I became a superstar because of Europe. America didn't make me a superstar. And that was true. Europe made her big. Before she came back to the States, there are videos where she was performing like on like Top of the Pops, and you see her performing What's Love Got to Do With It, and Private Dancer, which I love. I love Private Dancer more than What's Love Got to Do With It. And to me, like when you see it, it's kind of campy. And that's because she wasn't a superstar globally. She was a star, but she was, like about to break through. And you kind of see like what's going to come for her. And then it's like all of a sudden by the end of the decade, she's a superstar. But before, it's like she was almost a has-been. So it's a learning lesson. You could turn your career around. You could turn your whole life around. She's inspiring. And that's what I take from Tina Turner's life. I mean, to me, it's very triumphant because I don't care what nobody say. She did the smartest move when she said, I want my name. You can have everything you want, but I'm going to keep my name. And I did like the way she talked, though. That I just loved it. I loved it. I'm not going to lie. I loved it. And I remember those videos I used to watch as a kid. And it's really sad that generations like younger than mine, they don't know about the MTV era where you could see people who was in like their 30s and 40s and some in their 50s, and they were current. And we revered our icons. These kids will never know what it's like to see Tina Turner on MTV or the others or her peers. They'll never know that feeling. And that's really sad. But, with that being said, rest in power to Tina Turner. She's iconic. She will always be iconic. Okay? With that being said, I'm signing out. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode of my podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. And I will talk to each and every one of you later on, because I'm going to touch on this more so because Tina Turner is sort of like, my mom isn't here anymore. So for me, when I would look at Tina, last couple of years she was alive, it was like my mom. My mom was a big fan. So wherever you are, Tina, I know my mom is probably, my mom is probably, like, I hope I meet her, And with that being said, I'm signing out. See you soon, mommy. And rest, well, I won't say see you soon because I ain't trying to go no time soon, but let me rebuke that in the name of Jesus. But what I will say is rest in paradise, Tina Turner. And Ma, she's there in heaven with you. Okay? Later.